Well, thank you. It's so lovely to be here. You know, Byron is, as I'm sure I don't have to tell you, one of the most gorgeous places on the planet, and I always just feel relaxed just being here. So it's wonderful, and thank you to Lisa and Ken and Jane for organising. These guys, I'm sure you guys know this, do an extraordinary job, and I'm always blown away when I hear about the opportunities that they create for you up here. It's really amazing. I feel like I'm a little bit the thorn between two brilliant minds tonight of Benjamin Law and Tony Ayres, and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of maybe the drier stuff, but it is important, I think, in the context of the conversation we're having. I'm going to talk about the practicalities and the legalities of options. Look, I just want to say before I start, slide one, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice I'm giving you, and when you get to the point that you're signing your option, or whether either in the capacity as a writer or a producer, please seek legal advice. These are legally binding documents. They say really important things about the project and about your relationship, and if they haven't been thought out at the point at which they're signed, they can have repercussions down the road that are not helpful. So, but what I want to give you tonight is some pretty high-level guidelines, flags, things to look for, things to consider, and just a really broad overview of what the main points of negotiation are in an option. So as Ben said, this is the new book cover that's coming out for his book, The Family Law, and I'll be using that as kind of a bit of a touchstone and an example. Of what an option can be. So, I mean, what essentially is an option? An option is an agreement between a producer and a writer that gives, or a creator, that gives the producer the legal right to pitch, develop and finance the idea. There are many kinds of options, and you don't just option books. You can also option an idea. It needs to be a substantial idea, really, to do an option, and I'll talk about the alternative of another option that that Matchbox uses when it's not an actual option agreement. But it's a proper legal document that really the main purpose of it is to give all those rights to the producer so they can do what they need to do to try and make the project happen. As has already been said tonight, Matchbox has optioned and developed quite a few books over its time as a company, and Tony has worked on all of them, so he is really experienced in this arena. One of the really big ones for the company was The Slap by Christos Chorkos, and I don't know, did anyone here see The Slap? Yeah, great. We've just started going into production on another one of Christos's books called Barracuda. It's in the second week of shooting, Tony? Yeah, and Tony's also executive producer on that project. And another project of ours that's in development is 7 Types of Ambiguity, which will be in production next year. And also another one that I haven't included up there is a feature film called Ali's Wedding, which is based on a book called Good Muslim Boy by Asami Sama, and that's Australia's first Muslim comedy. So, and they're just about 3 weeks into shooting at the moment. So it's certainly something that the company is interested in, and as Ken rightly pointed out before, it's a great basis for a producer because you've got a story. If the project has been successful, you also know it's a story that people are interested in. So for example, with The Slap, in some ways it was a proven entity. It didn't mean that the end result was going to be as successful as it did turn out to be. But it meant that there was a really good basis there. There was already an audience, whether it's in production or in advertising, down the track. You're not starting from scratch in terms of the product that you're creating. So books are a fantastic resource for producers. When do you use an option? So a book option is used when a production company wishes to create a film or television series based on the author's works. And yeah, that's sort of pretty straightforward. But for a less developed work, so we could also option at Matchbox, we could option a substantial idea, something maybe would have to be, over maybe 8 to 10 pages long, something that was really solid, well-developed idea. But if an idea, because obviously a lot of ideas come to us, if an idea comes to us that isn't so well developed, but we really love, but we're not as sure that there's going to be interest in terms of developing it to a series, or it just requires more of a risk from us. Another document that we use is called a shopping letter. And a shopping letter is a much, much simpler document. It's still a legal document, but it's more like a 2-page document. And why it's good to use a shopping letter is because it doesn't have so much detail as an option. It doesn't require so much time to negotiate. It would still have in it the key points of the deal should we go into option. So you're still negotiating. So I'll go through kind of 5 key things that you're looking at in an option. It would still cover off in them. So if you move into option, you've already agreed on them. But it's just not going to require as much back and forth. Therefore, it's not requiring so much legal time. Therefore, it's not such an expensive document to create. So if we love your idea, we think there could be something in here, we might just do a shopping letter. We'd then take it round to the networks and have some conversations, see what kind of interest there is. And if there's interest in going into development, we would then move into an option. The main purpose of an option is twofold. Firstly, it is just the legal component. It really is just to make sure that the producer has got the rights they need to do what they need to do. And this is, this is a practical thing as well as a legal thing. Like if we don't have those rights, we don't have the authority to go out and speak about the work. We won't be able to get investors' money. We actually, we need to have that from a legal point of view, but it also clarifies the deal. It's an opportunity to have a very clear conversation about what the writer's expectations are in the project and to write them down legally so that there's no confusion. And again, I'll go into them as we go along in terms of the things that you can be expected to be asked and make decisions on when you're signing your option agreement. As Ben said, this is the day when the real family came to set. And one of the things that was really interesting about the family law, and one of the things we had to consider legally when we were optioning Ben's book, is the fact that it was based on real people. So, we had to protect ourselves in part of what we agreed with Ben. And part of doing that was the fact that Ben agreed that as we moved ahead, he would work with us to get written agreements from his family saying that they were okay as well with us, producing the television series. And that came from our broadcast partner SBS as well. They'd had some experiences in the past where projects had been done that were based on real people. And those real people hadn't been informed enough. And so when the project went to air, they'd sort of come out and said, hey, that's not fair. And we certainly didn't want a situation where that was going to happen, where, one of Ben's family members, that's right, Jenny going for the jugular. Yeah, so there's other specific things that was specifically to do with the project and the fact that it was based on real people. So I just want to go through 5 key things about an option agreement. 5 things that that you will need to be looking at negotiating. So the first one is the time frame. A typical option agreement would cover a 4-year period. There's no rules about that, but that's kind of traditionally what you could expect, and that's because it would probably take at least that long for the producer to get the project up. That time period is broken down into segments. There's the initial time period, which will be between 12 and 24 months. And then there'll be usually 2 12-month extension periods that, so when you're coming to the end of the 24 months, and this certainly happened with family law, we'd signed the initial agreement with Ben, we'd started doing some work. It was taking us a little bit longer than we all anticipated to break the scripts. And so we needed to extend. Actually, I think we ended up doing a 3rd one just to get us into production. We knew by then, because it was about a 5-year development project on family law, wasn't it? It took a long time, worth every hour. Yeah, we need that document. When we then go to our investors, we'll need to have that option in place, that the time period. So we'd need to, before we go to Screen Australia, for example, we'd need at least 6 months additional on the option agreement. So that's the time frame that you'll probably be looking at. Very important. I'm sure you're all keen to know. Show me the money. How much do you get for these sorts of things? There are a few different places that the money appears in an option agreement. The first one is an initial fee. So that's, when you sign the agreement, we say, okay, and here's an initial fee that's been paid. No one in Australia in particular, I'm not sure what it's like overseas, no one gets rich from the option fee. That is not where your expectations should be for making money. At that point in the project, the producer is taking a massive risk. They do not know that that project is going to get up. So that is kind of a goodwill payment, I would say, at that point. It also, so when you have an option agreement, it actually goes hand in hand with another agreement called an assignment agreement, or sometimes it's called a purchase agreement. You negotiate both of those at the same time, but initially only the option is exercised. So the option agreement gives you the right to go around and try and sell it. If the project gets up and is going to be made, the assignment agreement kicks into place. And that's an agreement that then says, okay, and here, now we're moving forward, here's the money, here's the situation of actually making the show. So you could say the option's the pitching document and the assignment is the making of it. The reason it's important to negotiate both of those at the same time is basically because, say, the producer just had an option agreement and didn't have an assignment agreement with you. They'd done all this work to get the project up, get all these investors on board, get everything in place, and then you're about to go into production and the writer says, oh, hang on, no, I've changed my mind. Now I want this, this and this, and I want all these things, and, and these budgets and the way things run, it's a carefully balanced machine. So, so to have those both things set up really clearly at the beginning, it just means that the writer and the producer know exactly what their expectations are all the way through the production. As part of that, assignment agreement, there will be a purchase price, and that's the price that kicks in once you're making the production, and that will be a substantially higher fee than your option fee. It's often a percentage of the overall budget, and that fee, the initial fee that you got paid in the option, will usually be deducted from the purchase price. So there's the extension fees. Again, they will be minimal fees. So we talked about, in the time period, you got the option fee and then the 2 extension fees. You'd expect to be paid a small fee. It could even be kind of a $1 kind of nominal fee, depending on how high profile the project is. And all of these, of course, are going to depend on the proven value of the asset and the writer. So, for example, something like The Slap and Christos, and this book had done very, very well. It had sold internationally, so you could expect something like that to get a stronger purchase price than if you were a new author. Also with Ben, Ben already had a really strong reputation as a writer. We knew that we were very much buying him as a great voice and a unique voice, so that, that was counted into how these numbers are calculated. So there's the initial fee, then your extension fees, the purchase price that you get paid on the first day of production, and then the ongoing remuneration that you can receive at the back end of the project. So this would be calculated as a percentage of producers' net profits. So once the show has been made and then it starts to get sold internationally, the profits come down through a certain agreed way. There's certain costs that need to be paid before anyone makes any money. But at the point that the producer starts making any money, you would expect that you get a reasonably small percentage of the percentage that the producer gets. So of 100%, maybe 50% will go to the investors, 50% might go to the producer, and you would get a percentage of that 50%.